It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We all used to be stars. Now we hate to see each other shine. We'd rather throw shade at each other's accolades, rather pull the pins from grenades, because we all feel like we are the bomb that isn't till shit blows up, and we tend to blow shit up. Call us suicide bombers. 9/11 ain't got shit on us. Twin Towers crumbled just like Junebug's future did. So for his sake, don't celebrate his bid or his homecoming, because he came home a lot different than what he left. Found out most of our best secrets were indeed kept in a book. That's why Master never wanted past Junebugs to learn how to read and write. So presently, Junebugs are always being told, let me read you your rights, and prayerfully, future Junebugs can read the writing on the wall. This poem is your calling card, your ET phone home, you better wake up and smell the coffee before the street light comes on. Cause no matter if you are right or wrong, you got a Junebug type of skin tone. Your bag of Skittles have already been assumed to be atoned. Never walk these streets alone, but not in groups of 4 or more. They will consider you a gang. Never whistle at white women and never dream. But if you do dream, dream big. Understand that there was power in knowledge, and knowledge is free. But first, Junebug, you got to read. Know your history before slavery. Can't you see the irony that nigga Junebugs were sold to the highest bids on the auction block, and now my nigga Junebug is being sentenced the highest bid to these sale blocks, and it's all for profit. So it ain't cliche that Junebug comes home and he is now a prophet. He had 10 years, 2 months, and 3 days of confinement to see things clearer. Now it's time for him to pick up his pen and pad and write down all of his errors for future Junebugs. Just hopefully it won't take him 10 years, 2 months, and 3 days of confinement to finally decide to pick up that book and read. Peace, I am Courtnay.
I don't know what number interview this is. I really don't care, because we're here sitting with you lovely Miss Courtney Cohen.
Yeah, you are.
Nice to meet you.
Good to be here.
Alright, I guess we'll start with asking, as usual, is the basics. Where are you from, ma'am?
I am from Owendale, South Carolina.
Owendale.
Yeah.
How did you make your way to Charleston?
Well, when I was in elementary school, there was a new school starting in Charleston called the Charleston County School of Performing Arts, where it allowed children all over the Charleston County to come to school and practice an art form. And so when I graduated elementary school, my grandmother actually was adamant about me going to this performing arts school because I had such a liking to theater and public speaking at a very young age. They shipped me off, I got accepted, and I went to School of the Arts in North Charleston for middle and high school. So that's how I got here.
I love that school. I wanted to go there, but whatever. So theater and art. What exactly turned you on about it? Like what makes you passionate about theater and art? Like what drew your attention pretty much?
Initially, the attention. Initially it was just being really good at it and getting a lot of attention from being good at it. You know, there were always compliments and we want to see you perform, and you know, at a young age it was just the attention, you know. As I got older, I really enjoyed evoking emotion from people. I really enjoyed to make people feel a certain type of way. If you're feeling down or if you're feeling happy, you know, like I could kind of create any type of feeling with that theatrics, you know, that I had. So I started to enjoy theater for what it really was. But originally it was just for the attention.
Okay, so do you believe that everyone pretty much starts for the attention, or? Initially,
well, it depends on when they start. I started as a child, you know, so I think if an adult gets into doing performing arts, theater, poetry, spoken word, any sort of entertainment, they're probably passionate about it and they just want to do it for the art form. But as a kid, you know, starting off, it wasn't because I was like, I'm so in love with art. That was never the case then, you know, it was the attention.
Okay, so after you know, you pretty much found your calling, because you found it at a young age anyway, you already pretty much knew what you wanted to do.
Kinda, yeah.
So what made you transition over to what you do now?
Poetry. Well, I went through a phase where I got tired of theater. the stage really just wasn't fun for me anymore, and I went on somewhat a quest to find myself. I became a rebel without a cause. Started doing things that naturally I wouldn't do, how I wasn't raised. And I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, just exploring, you know, getting out of Charleston, getting out of South Carolina. Charlotte at the time was just beginning to boom. You know, I was 21, and I stumbled across a poetry show. And I met this poet by the name of Blues, who to this day is still my favorite poet. And I fell in love with what he was doing on stage. It was like a monologue opposed to just a poem. You know, he was performing the piece. And I was like, hey, like this is a little like home, like theater, but you're on stage by yourself. And I always used to write, you know, I had a diary. I would, you know, do poems for church and things of that nature. And I kind of just fell in love with what he was doing. And I would come out to these shows and I began to write. And when I came home, I noticed that it had been a art form that I used to love in Charleston when I was really young. I used to go to the poetry shows downtown at LJ's, the era of Deja D, the Poetic Jazz Society, Jason, Giorgio Fish, Sunny Day. It was a bunch of dope poets, and I was 18 at the time, could barely get in the club. And so I came home and that art form had died. It hadn't been as potent as it was when I was coming up at 18. So there was a couple of poets, you know, doing some things, and I just jumped right on in to try to create this scene that is missing, though that was missing in Charleston. That was happening, you know, my homeboy Sirius 6 was doing the show at the time. Dope show. He moved away with work, and the city just really needed something, and I just started doing my poetry shows. I started Neo Soul Sunday in August, at least 6 years ago, this August. So, you know, and I just kept thriving and kept pushing, and poetry just became my life.
So, out of all the shows that you've done so far, what would you say was your favorite?
Neo Soul Sunday is definitely my favorite. And Charleston would probably kill me for saying this, but Neo Soul Sunday Columbia, that show is actually my favorite show. It's just so poetic. The listeners, they come out for poetry. You know, in Charleston, I love my Charleston show because it's my first show, it's my baby. But, you know, you get a lot of people who come out because we don't have a lot of things where there's, you know, a lot of artsy-fartsy venues. So a lot of people come out not so much for the art form, but just the atmosphere. In Columbia, they come for the poetry. They are coming for the art and strictly for the art. So my favorite show I would have to say is Neo Soul Sunday Columbia. It just gives me, it is my place of zen. Whenever I feel bad, I look forward to the fourth Sundays when I'm in Columbia to do my Neo Soul Sunday Columbia show.
So do you see that you could possibly change the perspective of not just individuals here in Charleston, but individuals who would actually come to a show just for the atmosphere? Do you think that you could actually not sway them, but just persuade them to really love the art?
Well, that was one of my initial goals. Once my partner had left Charleston and he wasn't doing his poetry show anymore, my goal not only was it to just do my art form, but it was also to tap in people who necessarily would never come to a poetry show or check out a live band, your average everyday brother from the hood, you know, like I wanted him to understand you can get into poetry too. So that was one of my ultimate goals. I wanted to create an atmosphere where people of my color could come through and not feel like I have to be a certain type of. I don't have to be a professional or, you know, a yuppie to feel like I can get into poetry. Nah, you can get into poetry and can be one of the boys from the hood. You know what I'm saying? And that was one of my ultimate goals. And it has happened in Charleston. You know, I find some of the homies with gold teeth coming to me like, yo, when the next poetry show? And I love it because they're bringing some sort of culture into their lives, and I'm just elated by it.
So you've explained that your favorite show is Neo Soul Sunday Columbia.
Yes.
What is your best show? Or what has been your best show?
Well, what do you consider to be my best show?
Well, you're right. You are right. You're definitely
What do you mean by is it?
Well, I hate to really talk about revenue, but
Mhm.
what has been your best show that has brought the most revenue to you?
The Erotic Poetry Show Charleston.
Gotcha. Okay, so what is the best show as far as feedback from your people?
Neo Soul Sunday Charleston.
Why
They
do you
love
say
it.
so?
Well, the show has been on hiatus for a couple of months because of venues, the lack of venues in Charleston. I don't like to bring poetry shows into bars and restaurants because people are coming there for the bar or the restaurant. They're not coming for the poetry. And Charleston has been dying for this show to come back because of the substance that it had. It was great poetry, it was great music, great comedy, great food. And the city needs it, Columbia, a lot of stuff happens in Columbia, we don't get so much, and the city really misses that great quality show. And I just love that it meant something to the people, you know how they say you don't miss a good thing till it's gone type of thing. Like, it's just, now that the show hasn't been, as consistent because of venues, the people are really, really missing it, because that spoken word to some people would just help them get through the week. You would hear something at a poetry show that would encourage you to make it through the night, the next day. Yeah, poetry is like church. So for those who don't go to church, you sometimes you get a word from a poet who was depicting a story that you live. And it's like, man, like, I know that story, I know that struggle, I didn't know someone else was going through it. So Neo Soul Sunday in Charleston is dearly missed, and it is coming back in March. The month of March 2015, Neo Soul Sunday Charleston will be debuting again. And it's just one of those shows where I've gotten the most feedback from, as far as tonight. It was so amazing. I heard something that just saved me. I had one girl after one Neo Soul Sunday come and hold me as if my words had literally just saved her life. So it's just like, that show, I can tell it has had the most impact on the people that come to the show. So, what up, New Word Magazine? This is your girl Courtnay the Poet. Get at me on all of your social media websites as Courtnay the Poet at everything. That's my Facebook, my Instagram, and even if you want to email me, that's my Gmail, that's my Twitter, that's my Snapchat, that's everything. Courtnay the Poet. That's COurtnayThePoet. Get at me. Shout out to the whole Pretty People ENT camp, the crew that keeps me moving and rolling. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Shout out to Tawana T, my publicist, girlyouthebomb.com. Shout out to Karen Simmons, my manager. I love you. Yeah. Peace.